Hello, fellow travelers, and welcome to the Traversing the Stars podcast. How are my loyal listeners? Thank you for your continued support. As always, hit that subscribe button, everybody. We have an amazing show for you because aboard the mothership is Sam Willis. He's the writer and creator of Raze, now on Kickstarter. Malcolm, join me as we go traversing the stars. Hello, Mr. Willis. Thank you so much for coming to the Traversing the Stars podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
It was totally my pleasure. I got to read the 4 issues of Raze, and they were fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem. So I always start off with a question of inspiration. So what inspired your love for comic books and who were your earliest influences?
So I would say, as far as comic books, me and my co-creator Trey, more of the manga side. We kind of grew up on a lot of mangas and obviously Western comics too. My first book was like an Avengers coloring book, so very early on, I was kind of just brought into this world, and I'm a huge Marvel fan, but I also love DC comics as well, like how dark they can get and whatnot. Obviously, like Frank Miller, big inspiration on that. Just being able to, I think, like telling a dark story had always like fascinated us. But early on, for I think inspiration, we were huge gamers back in the day. So Left 4 Dead was like a zombie video game that we used to always play together. And we put like thousands and thousands of hours into it. So that was like a huge inspiration. And it was always like, which people can kind of tell is like when issue 1 starts, we kind of just throw you into this world and we really don't explain much, just that there's a threat and that you want your character to survive. And that's kind of how we went out the gate. And that's a little bit of how Left 4 Dead did it too. There wasn't really much of like, there was story to an extent, but it wasn't like any groundbreaking story they were doing. It was just run them up, shoot them up, zombies, So that was like a heavy inspiration, I would say, for us.
So how did you hone your skills as a writer? How did you get better at it? How are you able to produce? I guess you're now up to 5 issues of Raze. So how were you able to do that?
I mean, honestly, just a lot of studying. Like me and Trey would just always watch, whether it be TV shows, books, movies. It was a lot of just seeing what worked and what didn't. I think the best examples is seeing it for yourself and being like, like we're super critics now, so we can't even enjoy anything we watch because we just critique it to hell. And it's just like, it's these things where you see like, oh, that, third act didn't work because they changed this. And if they didn't change that and just did this, I think it would have been a little bit more fleshed out as far as the characters or the plot. So it's like, honestly, just like analyzing, doing a lot of research, figuring out what worked and what didn't. And most of our issues kind of have a 3-act structure, or that's the way we like to model them. So, I mean, we talked to someone where like we got across the point, which was that we wanted to model it almost like an episode, like it is a comic book, but the way I think we kind of do these plot points is very, very traditional as far as like screenwriting and I think putting a story together goes.
So as you become increasingly critical of what you're watching, is it hard to not be as critical with what you're writings, or do you fear you're doing the same thing, and how much does that drive you crazy, being overly analytical with what you're working on?
Yeah, that's hard because it's like it's like anytime you write something, like for example, like issue 1, the issue 1 that you see is the 3rd rendition because the first one we did not like. We tried doing way too much, and we're like, this is too much. This is supposed to be introduction to Raze, and there's like 8 different storylines going on. So we ultimately scrapped it. And then the second one, we got halfway through, and our artist bailed on us. So like, it was almost like you just have to be honest with yourself. You just have to look at it and be like, this is good or this isn't. And it's, for me, it's like, I'm very fortunate because I have like a really strong creative team with me. So like Trey, on the other hand, is very like just honest and real. So it's not like, I'm not looking in the mirror and be like, yeah, this is great. Like there's another person on the side saying like, yo, this is crap. This is not good. So it makes it a little bit easier on that aspect.
So kind of interesting you're talking about that you lost your first artist on the issue. I do my own indie comics as well, a bunch of them, and I will tell you is I've had some horrible experiences with artists as well. How hard is it to find an artist that you can trust? They'll get done what they say they're gonna get done. that will get something done in a timely fashion. Because I must admit, I've hit far more road mines with artists, and I've had ones that I've been really excited with. I mean, I've had a few. I mean, the guy Night Patrol, Frankie Washington, was awesome, but at the same time, I can list the horror show of failed artists on my con.
Yes.
So how do you navigate that minefield?
Oh man, it is a minefield, honestly. We've gone through more artists than I can count on my two hands just with Raze. It's hard because you have to almost like pick up a stranger off the street. You have to get them excited about your project. You have to hit them with timelines, and you almost like the way I operated, and I don't know if it's good or bad, but I always tried to give these artists creative freedom. Like we wanted it a certain way, but like we wanted our artists to have fun too. And I always tried to be friends with these artists because like, we're all people at the end of the day. Like I know I need you to get stuff done, but it's not just about timelines. It's not about just edits and provisions and everything that you have to go through. I think, at least in my mindset, is if I could make you into a friend and I can make you passionate about this project, then we can make a collaboration together versus me just hiring another person and looking to you as another number versus looking to you as a member of the team. And that's always how I kind of tried to go through it. But once again, like we have our co-creator who's drawing issue 5 because it was hard to navigate this minefield. Like you said, it's just this, it's very hard. Like you have to craft someone, and I think you have to mold them into the person you want them to be on your project. And that's always how we tried to look at it. And we always tried to, I think the biggest thing is like, like we're all busy. So it's like having these fair timetables and, having that line of communication for us always helped, where if anything was to happen, like we had artists where like, personal family problems happen. And it's like, give your artists space. Like they're human beings too. They're not these machines that you're like, here's 6 pages. I need it done in 3 days. It's like, no, you need to look at them as like human beings because that's what they are. They are not machines.
I agree. I find that with a lot of artists, there's like a 4 or 5 page window of concern. Once again, I don't know about you, but with me, I pay per page. So they do a page, send them money. They do a page, I send them money. For it by page 4 or 5, is when I usually find the cracks start showing up in the cement, as it were, when you're like, oh no, this has happened, that's happened. So now months go by. It's like, no, everything's good. And then I've had before the after 5 pages, actually, I need to make more money per page. It's like,
yes.
What? It's like, yeah, we agreed to this, but I really kind of feel like it should be this right now. I was like, after that's usually about 4 or 5 pages into finished work. Have you noticed like there's like a pattern of problems that show up?
Oh yeah, it's always like, when you hire an artist, I think you go through this trial period, and it's this thing because we've had it where we're doing an issue and we agreed on a price, and now it's like, hey, yeah, we'll do your art, but we got to get paid $25 per page for you to be at the top of the list. And I'm like, this is not how it works. Like I know you need to make money, but like, when we agree to terms, like I expect that you honor those, just so like when we're moving forward. And it's like, it's this thing where it kept me up at night, where it's like, oh man, I don't know if my artist is going to leave tomorrow. I don't know if they're going to ask for more money. Like it's this thing that you just stay up at night and you worry about. And I'm glad that I don't have to do that anymore.
I'm telling you, it's like you got a budget not only for your artist, but for the second and third artist that you end up having to use. So it's like,
exactly,
it'll take me this many $1,000s to finish my comic book, plus this extra 1,000 or so of failed attempts before I get there.
Absolutely. It's like, honestly, like the way I kind of modeled it is like having more than one artist, because then it's less work that I think they have to carry. Because like, again, like you're doing 24 pages, and in those 24 pages, you're having anywhere from 1 to 8 panels, however you're designing your comic. So it's like, each one's a different drawing. It's not like they do it all together in one session. Like it takes time and it takes patience. And, the artists that bust their asses in this industry, I have the most respect, because it takes commitment, it takes patience, and it takes, communication. That's the biggest thing with this. It is a partnership, you know what I mean? Which is how we always try to go about it with, creator to artist to however we're going through these issues.
So raises up to issue 5. So when you started the series, obviously started at issue 1. When you started issue 1 with the series, did you imagine that you'd get this far, 5 issues into it?
So yes and no. Just because we've been building this story for about 15 years. So we've had this story in our brain since we were in 7th grade, and it ultimately changed over the years. But yeah, it was, for us, it was always like we wanted Raze to be this thing you can continuously come back to and continuously get invested. I know for American comic book industry, it's usually, you're getting this very like 4 to 5 issue run on most of these stories. We didn't want to do that. We wanted it to be this continuous story. So when you pick up issue 1 to wherever it's going to end, you're getting that full story. Like it is continuing through the comic. And that was like a big thing we kind of talked about because, the things that I think we're going to be setting up in the coming years, there's a really big world building kind of thing that we're going to be leaning into that I think is going to excite a lot of people, and it's going to be very different. We're no Walking Dead. We're not the traditional zombie book.
See, that's actually going to cover my next question. But so once again, Raze is being part of the zombie genre, which once again it's been pretty big over the last 20 years, I would say. So in conceptualizing your idea for Raze, how did you differentiate your stories from others in the genre?
A few things. First of all, if you haven't seen our covers, go check them out because that's like the first thing that I think we tried to make different with our comic. Secondly, it was always, for me, it was always like the oversimplification of the zombie genre. I hated it. I really feel like there is this really nice area where you could tell a riveting story and have the zombie element. So for us, it was always like, this project started from a what if question, and it really blossomed into something totally unexpected. But it was always like, we had these stories, these stories for zombies, whatever medium you go to, where it was like human and zombie, but no one ever told you that story in the middle. And that's what we're telling you. These are what we're coining as infected. So, they're not trying to bite you. This virus gets spread through skin to skin contact. So it's pretty quick on how that happens. And where we begin in the story, it's like the first week of this infection happening. Like nobody knows anything. So this is running rampant. It's getting spread around really quickly. And these infected are bloodthirsty creatures who just want to beat the crap out of you. So, and they're fast, they're strong. They're not the slow ones. So just like upping the ante for how terrifying it could be is what our goal was for Raze, while also having just a slew of characters that are going to have all these different arcs and all these different, like, it's crazy to think because when we first wrote it, all the characters sounded the same, but now we have this like band of high schoolers who are just very different. And if you read our issues, you can see how different they are, how hard they clash. So it's these elements of creating like this melting pot of characters, creating this terrifying element of zombies, and giving you a riveting story that you're going to come back to even more excited as we progress from issue to issue.
Now, the cool thing about the combo, one of the fun things is that there's a certain violence and gore quotient that you have in these issues. So how much fun was to write those scenes? And in your opinion, like, what is the age group of what the reader should be in reading it?
Yes, it was very fun. It's funny because the way me and Trey's partnership works is I have all the crazy ideas and I have to put it through the Trey machine and see what comes out on the other side and what will work. Especially when we go through the gore, I'm like, hey, what if we do this? And what if we rip like someone's ear off and we throw it at their head? And he's like, no, we're not, we're not doing that. So it's finding that middle ground where it makes sense. It's gonna either gross you out or get you scared, or like I just want a visceral reaction from the audience when we're doing this score. That's the goal of it. As far as age group, it's funny because like I see it as more of a mature audience, but we just went to an event like a few months ago, and it was in New Hampshire, and one of the guys is like the owner of a comic book store, and he has like I think he had like two kids, and they were around like the ages of like 11 to 13. And I asked them before I gave them the comic, and then they're like, yeah, that's fine. And then they go and read the comic, and they're like, hey, I just read issue 1, can I get issue 2 now? And they're just like kept coming back to the table. So like I would say there's discretion because there are mature themes. There's language that's pretty mature, but it's up to your discretion. You know what I mean? If your parent says it's okay, then go and read Raze. If they say it's not okay, then don't. So that's kind of how we're going forward with that. Whether it works or not, we'll kind of see. I'm just hoping that there's no angry parents that come up to our booth and are screaming at us and whatnot.
That's cool. Which Comic Con was it? Do you remember?
It actually wasn't a Comic Con, so it was a local event in New Hampshire, and he had his own comic book store, but he set up these little tents right outside because he had a pretty big parking lot, and he had like a few comic book creators, and a few people had like a few vendors too, so it was pretty cool. Last time we went, we actually met the artist of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which was so cool. So it's always cool to go to those things too, and it's very weird because people always just ask us for our signatures, and we're just like, we're just normal people, or that's how we feel at least.
Right. So what, you got any cool conventions coming up?
So we actually have one in our hometown that we're going to. So we're from Worcester, Massachusetts. So there's a store called That's Entertainment, and it's right by Halloween. So it's kind of fitting. And we're going to be having like a lot of cool exclusive merch options because we've been dipping our toes a little bit into the merch with our Kickstarter. So we're going to have some cool things that are going to be kind of exclusive to that event. We haven't gone to many this year because this year has really been about production. We've had a really hard time with really hammering down timelines and getting these issues out at a very reasonable rate. So we've been kind of hammering down, and I don't think we're there yet, but we're very, very close to getting to a proper timeline for these issues. Our goal is ultimately to put out 4 issues a year. And it is just we got a team of 4, but our cover artist is in Croatia. So he's doing the covers, but we're on the other side doing everything else. The lettering, the shading, the inking, the line art, the storyboards, everything. So
that's pretty cool. I'm actually going to be in that area. I have a Springfield Comic Con tomorrow that I'm going to have a table at.
Oh, really? Yeah. That's awesome, man.
You. So I'm going to be in the vicinity apparently.
Oh, that's awesome. That is totally cool. So yeah, that's good. What Comic Con is it?
Springfield Comic Con.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was supposed to have been
that's
around.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's supposed to be. I think it's supposed to have been 2 years ago, pre-COVID, is when I bought my table, and this is finally the table that I end up with 2 years later.
Oh wow. Okay, so is this like the first one coming back from COVID?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
This is literally my first convention in 2 years, and I guess Springfield's first convention as well, maybe ever, or in the last 2 years. Because like I said, they had so it's supposed to be September of I think 2019 when COVID was hitting, and then they canceled the show. They canceled the next year. They canceled the next year, and they're like, all right. And then I just got a Twitter message like, "Welcome to Springfield Comic Con 2022." I was like, "Who?" and they're like, "No, congratulations!" And they announced me on Twitter that was coming to the show, and I was like, "Oh." Apparently so. I will be there.
Wow, that's cool though. I haven't heard of Springfield Comic Con, so maybe it must be new because I haven't heard of it that much, to be quite honest.
Well, cross your fingers that it's a good one, because
yeah, right. Yeah, tell me how it goes. I'm in Clinton right now, so that's about, I would say, 45 minutes away. So it's really not that far, Been trying to go to as many northeastern cons as I can, just because it's in the area. It makes it a little bit easier with working a full-time job and all that good stuff,
Yeah. So cross your fingers. Like for me, it's about a 2-hour drive. So 2 hours up, 2 hours back.
Oh, that's not too bad though.
Oh, it's probably better than New Hampshire, but
Yeah.
it better be worth the drive.
Yeah, right. Well, I wish you the best of luck on that tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So going back a little bit to Raze. So once again, obviously the zombies are kind of like a primary peripheral threat to your protagonist. But how important are the human interaction to the story? And is there a message inherent to the story about the danger or volatile nature of people, even within a larger threat?
Yeah, so it's funny because the way our world is set up right now. So it's funny because we just went through this with COVID and everything. And so it's a good example, but it's like, you know, for most zombie genres, when you see the human element, they've already been in the thick of it for months and months and months and months. So I don't think that element is there yet because it just happened. So the cool thing, and it was always like something that we always talked about that we wanted to do is, you know, every zombie genre just throws you in it when it's already the apocalypse. They're not showing you how society kind of crumbles and how they react and what they might do. And I think that's the cool thing about Raze, you know, it's always like, you know, it's the decline. It's the slow decline on where humankind is actually going to go with this. And that's how you're going to see kind of the story play out. As far as the themes in the comic, we actually kind of like the way we design it. And when we do these issues, we always try to either have a theme or have some sort of message. Issue 1 was really about the holy shit factor of like, holy crap, what the hell is going on? And that's what we wanted for issue 1. And you got to see a bunch of infected and what they can do. And then issue 2 was, okay, there's one. We're going to show you what one can do. And how dangerous one is. And then issue 3 was really like, you know, is the blend of personalities with all these characters. Like how are you gonna survive with these strangers? How are you gonna react? How are you gonna get along? And then issue 4, I think, which is one of my favorites that we've done thus far, was we were starting to break down how this infection works. And, you know, how, without spoiling too much, how dangerous this infected element could be. Because in our comic, and sorry, spoiler, there is a person that gets infected, and it really draws the line in the sand of where do you stand on this? Can you go and kill this person, or can you not go and kill this person? And, you know, it was fun to do that because it's like, you get to see where everyone's character is in that moment. You get to see what side of the fence they're on. And then we really get to push forward their story from there, you know, seeing their reaction, seeing like what they either decide or don't decide. And that's ultimately going to start to push the story forward.
So having read the issues, the two of the protagonists are Ashley and Bucky.
Yep.
Is there a relationship brewing between the two of these two characters, and is it like a legitimate relationship, or do you think it's like born from like the trauma they're experiencing?
It's funny because I think there's solidarity in suffering, you know. And to me, it's like we always designed it where it's kind of these two groups coming together, because Bucky's kind of the head honcho of his group, and then Ashley's kind of the head honcho of her group. So you kind of have these two alphas, and you have these like these characters below them that just are not enjoyable people to talk to, and just make it difficult. They may be somewhat enjoyable, but it's just hard to talk to them and hard to get through to them. And I feel like they're almost like the mediators of their own groups. As far as the trauma goes, I think that's one thing we're going to tap into with Raze, and something that I think people, when they read issue 3, they've either seen or maybe they haven't noticed, is like, we have this one page that I just love, is you kind of hear the word bridge, and then Victoria kind of goes into this episode where she almost get this PTSD effect because, like, believe it or not, they just saw a massacre on the bridge. Like, it is going to affect different people in different ways, and we're going to explore that as we go on through the story. But yeah, it's really just, it's this blend of characters that just are on different planes, and you're going to kind of see how we try to bring them together.
So one great thing about issue 4, Ashley states that once you take a life, there's no going back.
Correct.
So how prophetic of a statement would this prove to be in the series? And do the zombies count as a life?
See, that's the question. That is the catalyst, because it is this thing where they are these angry creatures who don't have any notion that there's a human inside of there. But they look like a human. They have these infected veins. So it really is this double-edged sword where they are the threat, and you need to do something about them so you don't die. But it's also like, are we killing someone? Are we ending their life? Like, what is the line here? And I think that's the thing we always wanted to do, is we wanted to have that zombie element, but we wanted to have that emotional kind of tie-in and mental tie-in of, can I do this? Can I actually kill somebody? And like I said, they're a bunch of high schoolers, so it's like they're not equipped for this world right now. They don't have guns, they don't have weapons. It's kind of them trying to figure out like what is right and what is wrong. And you got a lot of people talking in your ear and telling you one thing and telling you another. So it's hard. It's hard to define that line sometimes.
Well, issue 4 ends on a very cool cliffhanger. Can you kind of tease what listeners can expect in issue 5? How many issues are planned ultimately?
Yes. So for issue 5, which really, really fun. Even if you haven't read the issues prior, it's really easy because we kept the plot very simple for issue 5. In issue 4, Ashley's taking care of Joe, and he has been recently infected, and he's starting to show signs. At the end of the issue, Victoria goes into the room, and he is gone. He is now gone. The child they picked up from the bridge, Mark, he is now missing. So now it is a time clock. Clock is ticking down because now our survivors have to find that little boy before the infected does. And that's pretty much the basis of issue 5. And what was the second question? Sorry.
There was the question of how many are planned overall. So
I can kind of give you an answer with kind of not giving you an answer. Like I said, we have planned this series for over 15 years. We do have a beginning, middle, and end. This does not run for an unlimited amount of issues. The only thing is we don't know an exact number. We do know that for the next 5 years, we do have issues already written and ready to go, which we're going to be going into production, after issue 5 and obviously the beginning of next year. We have a lot of story planned, and we have a lot of arcs we want to do, and we want to get into a lot of cool things with these characters and with this world. So we don't have a definitive number. It just depends on how long it takes to explain some of these things that happen in the story. Gotcha. But it is going to be something that I think is going to keep you coming back and keep the excitement up, because we're going to be, I think, pushing what we can for the levels of storytelling in this series.
Very cool. So Raze is actively in a Kickstarter right now at the moment of this filming. So how excited has it been to launch this project? And what has the experience taught you about Kickstarter?
Oh man, it's been super exciting. It's been exhausting, I can tell you that. It took us about three to 4 months to get everything together and plan everything out. The most exciting thing was, I think, we got to come up with some really cool merch options. We got stickers, we got keychains, we got posters, we got our first variant cover on there. And we also got the highest tier, we're doing hats too. So it's really cool to do all that. And luckily for me, I've been able to talk to a lot of people before we did this Kickstarter on Twitter and whatnot, and a lot of indie creators. I think it's a very welcoming community. I've been able to learn a lot with, this has kind of been the trial run of what works and what doesn't. And going into our next Kickstarter, we obviously are gonna, put that forward when we make it. But yeah, it's been super insightful, seeing, what we can do to really elevate this series and make our fans feel more connected, because we're honestly asking for a helping hand, and in this process you're able to help our project, and hopefully in the process we're able to give you some really cool rewards that you guys would actually want. And that's that's probably the hardest part, is figuring out what you guys want.
Right.
You know, but I will say for our Kickstarter, it's like the first time we ever, you know, really, like, there's this section on our Kickstarter where we kind of break down a lot of these characters, and it's a lot of the stuff we haven't introduced in the story. So if you want to know more about these characters, we kind of did it in a fun way where you're able to kind of mix and match the numbers with the characters and get a little bit more information on, like, you know, what makes them tick, where they come from, all that good stuff.
So is there a reward or a reward tier that's your favorite, or that you're most excited to have people see?
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite things is, honestly, and I didn't think it would be my favorite, but it's the stickers. Like, I designed the stickers and my little brother colored them, so that's like my favorite thing, just because I'm not really good at drawing, if I'm being honest. Yeah. So it's like, it was fun to do that, and it was fun to do something that's like, you know, we try to just make it fun. You know, like, it's a zombie genre. Like, we have a smiley face sticker that's just really cool and really fun, and it's like, to do something like that, to kind of get out of our element and just to, you know, not be super serious and not be super gory, and like just to have fun with it, was probably my favorite. I think, well, I have kind of two favorite tiers, and one of them is because, you know, I'm a man who likes affordability, and that's what we tried to do in this Kickstarter. So fair enough. Like, one of our lowest tiers is it's issues 1 through 5 digitally that you get for $12. Yeah. And that's like $2.20 an issue, which in my opinion is a steal. And then my other one, I think it's the $80 one. It has the dual keychain, so it has the zombie girl, the zombie boy. It's got the stickers, the variant cover for issue 5, the issue 5, and I think both of them are signed. It's got the Bucky poster that we designed, and it's got all the issues physically. So it's kind of like a bundled deal, but you're getting a lot of content, I think, for a really good price.
So what is the end date for this Kickstarter?
So it actually ends August 4th, but it ends, I believe, at 8:38 a.m. So it's kind of like a weird timing, but yeah, it's going to end in the morning of Thursday morning. So I would say Wednesday is our pretty much last full official day of Kickstarter, just because it doesn't go too far into Thursday morning. Very cool. So hopefully you kill it. And do you have any stretch goals planned? Yeah, so that's what we're striving for, because like one of my favorite stretch goals is the one we have right after we hit our goal. So we just hit we're at 75% funded, so we only need like $500 till we hit our goal. But the second after we hit our goal, at least the most important one to me is we have an indie comics bundle, and it's like 6 different indie comics that we're going to be giving digitally to people. So even if you're not a huge fan of horror, is going to be genres scoping from all over. It's a blend of all these different stories that we're going to be able to give to people that I think people are going to really enjoy. Very awesome. Mr. Willis, it's a pleasure talking with you. So Absolutely. Raze issue 5, hopefully you're killing it. And then you're going to have Raze 6 coming up soon. So very cool. Yes, we are. We're excited. Should be. You'll have the next massive zombie tale. It'll be great. We're hoping. Come to our project to make that happen. Yeah, so listeners, look for it on Kickstarter. Raze, R-A-Z-E, issue 5. Yes. Make sure you give what you can. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. We appreciate it. No problem. Have a very good night. And like I said. Yes, thank you, Jeff. Thank you. You too. Thank you.